Hello, happy Friday. Welcome to another episode of the Chrissie Mayr podcast. We are on iTunes, YouTube, Spotify, and SoundCloud. And if you're listening to us right now on iTunes, go ahead and give us a 5-star review. Here's a wonderful review from Python 808. I'm going to read it for you guys right now. Chrissy's show, outstanding product. Ooh, I'm a product. Chrissy's show covers a range of topics as varied as her guests. Always entertaining and engaging. A great show to have in your podcast rotation. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Python. We appreciate the reviews. Oh, so very much. Quick shout out to my next stand-up date, October 16th. I can't believe it's October already. Happy October, guys. October 16th, I will be performing with Comedians of the Compound at the Blue Claws Stadium. That's in Lakewood, New Jersey. For tickets, go to compoundcomedy.com. Then I'll be headlining Tiff's Ale House November 6th in Morris Plains, New Jersey. I've canceled the shows that were going to be in Santa Monica for October 22nd and 23rd because of the vax mandates. So looking to probably reschedule. I hear good things about Orange County. We'll see. We'll see if I can still get to California. Quick shout out to our sponsor for this episode, for which we would not be here without them. We all know dating apps are terrible. They're just, I'm lucky enough to have found my person kind of before the dating apps. But I remember that they sucked. They suck really bad. They're superficial. It's a lot of face swiping. You don't even know if you're getting expert opinions. They usually kind of waste your time. The solution is a values-based matching system. If you're conservative, things probably are not going to work out with someone who's a total lefty. Same with religion, lifestyle, how to raise your children, and other core values. Sure, somebody might change to meet you where you are, but why not meet the perfect match right from the start? Drom is a free new values-based dating app. You pick the deal breakers and deal makers. There are no experts, no match percentages, and you don't have to addictively check the app. As soon as somebody matches with one of your deal breakers or deal makers and you match theirs, you get a notification. Drom is also video only for more human interaction. So go to Drom.Date/CMP in your phone's browser, click the iOS or Google button to install, and use the invite code CMP to sign up. And if you already are matched up, good for you. Time to tell your friends and get your partner to tell their friends. That's Drom.Date/CMP. Design and meet your perfect match. It's free to use. I'm so excited to have this guy on the pod today. You might have seen him. I believe he was on TimCast. Now he's here. He's doing my pod. He is running for Congress. This is very exciting. I always love having people on who are running against the establishment, and they want to beat the crusty people that have been in power too long. So he is running for Congress in New Jersey's 9th Congressional District. I believe that's Patterson, New Jersey there. So excited to have him on the pod today. Billy Prempeh, how are you?
I'm doing fantastic, and I think that's putting it a little bit lightly, calling him crusty. The guy's a little bit more fossilized, if anything.
Bill Pascrell, he has been. You're gunning for his job. He's been in there 40 years. I can't believe people can even hold positions longer than we've been alive.
Well, to be a little bit more specific, he's been in politics for more than 40 years, but he's been in Congress for 26 years in the 9th District. Before he was congressman of the 9th District, he was congressman of the 8th before the redistricting happened. And then before that, he was mayor of my city, Patterson, New Jersey. And then before that, he was an assemblyman. And then before that, he was on the Board of Education. And before that, he was a teacher, which he was probably in his early 40s at that point. So almost his entire life. He's 86 right now. He's been involved in politics.
86, my God. Yeah. Time to hang it up.
Yeah, he's riding till the wheels fall off.
we jumped into him right away. But for people who have not seen you on other pods or have never heard of you before, do you want to give a quick intro to who you are and why you're running for Congress?
So my name is Billy Prempeh, and I decided to get involved in politics. In all honesty, I wasn't even interested in getting involved in politics for quite some time. I've always been very well informed about it, but it was something that never crossed my mind to do. I always felt that politicians were not necessarily looking for the best interests of the people. I'm a United States Air Force veteran. I joined the military when I was 19. And my parents, they also came into this country legally. And I felt that serving in the military was one of the best things that I could have done to give back to the country. Unfortunately, Barack Obama was doing some very unbelievable things in Libya, dropping bombs on farms and so forth. And I no longer wanted to be a part of that. And I decided to leave the military quite early. I came back home. I was in England where I was stationed at the time. And I saw that the country changed completely from the time that I left under Barack Obama, and seeing how a lot of people in my generation were asking for things like socialism and communism, and rightfully so to some extent, because inflation was high, taxes were high, jobs were practically non-existent. I even started to lose a little bit of hope. It was difficult for me to find work, even coming out of the military. And I saw that, you know, this may possibly be the last bit of America that I'm going to be able to see. And then fast forward to 2016, when a gentleman with tidal wave hair and from a golden tower in New York comes and decides to run for office. And he did exactly that. Like a tidal wave, he swept a lot of this stuff. And he really changed my perspective on him as well, too, because my entire life I was never a fan of Donald Trump. I couldn't just understand his vibe. While my father loved the guy, he loved him a lot. I never really got behind him until I started to see the things he was talking about in 2015. A lot of what he said made sense. And you know, he ran for office. I voted for him because I definitely wasn't voting for Hillary, especially after what she did in Haiti. And I threw my vote to Donald Trump, and I don't regret that at all. This is the best I've ever seen America. Not now under Biden, but under Trump, it was the best I've ever seen America. I didn't even think something like that was possible. And in early 2020, he did a rally in Wildwood, New Jersey, and the rally had well over 100-something thousand people, probably more than that. Honestly, I'm probably just like really understating it, but he did something that I never thought was possible, especially for a Republican to do in New Jersey. And it really motivated and inspired me to run after my good friend, Dr. Castillo, convinced me. He said, Billy, you should run. You're a young guy. You've got great ideas. You're very well spoken. You're a military veteran. You're first generation American. A lot of the things that encompass the American dream, you are that guy. And I'm like, I still live in the hood, doctor. Like, I'm not, I would think that you have to be these Ivy League kind of people to run into office. After all, he was a doctor. And he said, no, you know, the Constitution was written for common men. It was written for regular folks, not Ivy League graduates and lawyers. And you encompass all of those things. He ran against my opponent in 2016. And at the time, he got more votes than any Republicans ever gotten. But when I got in that race in 2020, I shattered that record by an additional 33,000 votes and got more votes than any Republican in the past 35 years. So despite the COVID pandemic, despite the shutdowns, we did really, really well. And I think it's because we came with a completely different message. I was able to reach a much younger demographic, and people are sick and tired of Bill Pascrell, even the Democrats that have constantly voted for him over and over again. You know, I want to bring reforms to our school and make our school curriculums better, get more funding for our police so that we can reduce the crime in our community. I put a commercial out in April showing that the crime rate in Patterson was at 60%. It's currently at 72%. In fact, it's probably higher, but this is as of last month. It's up 72%. People are being killed literally every single day. My neighbor was killed right in front of my house, like a block away, about 4 months ago. You know, my high school friend was killed back in May. And this is something that's just happening way too frequently. And I want to bring some serious changes here. We have someone who sat in that chair and fossilized and no longer serves the will of the people. I'm sure at some point he did the right thing and he helped the people, but he's become a part of the class that I like to call the pocketicians, the people that do politics primarily for their own pockets. He's one of the richest people in Congress out of 430 something people in Congress. He's one of the richest people. He became a millionaire as a politician. He didn't become a millionaire outside of that. And that's why he doesn't want to give up this seat. His son's a multi-millionaire lobbyist. He sells access to power, similar to how Hunter Biden does it with Joe Biden. And he's everything that's wrong with our political system right now. So at the end of the day, there will be a time when he either retires or, you know, God forbid, he passes away. He's 86. But at the end of the day, the decisions that he makes, my generation is going to have to pick that up. We're going to have to deal with the consequences of the things made by him. And he's in it for his own personal interests. Our education is not doing well. and our kids don't seem to have any future. So I decided, you know what, I should step in there. I got to do what's right, and I want to bring new ideas to the table and replace a lot of the nonsense that he's put forward.
That's really cool, Billy. I feel the same as you about Trump. Like, I'm from New York, you're from New Jersey, like growing, or probably about the same age. I'm like, gosh, how old am I? 37. Like growing up, Trump was all okay. You're way younger.
I'm about to be 32 soon, though, so I'm catching
up. Okay. I'm old enough to be your babysitter. No, I don't know.
All right.
Growing up, like, Trump was always in our orbit. We were always hearing about him, and it was hard to take him seriously because he was always on some reality show. I mean, we always knew him to be a generally a good businessman and just a celebrity, like a presence, you know. And I remember when he came down the escalator, I was like, what is going on here? And I didn't vote for him in 2016. I didn't catch on. Like, I was very late to waking up and you know, learning about Hillary and just kind of generally how the establishment works. But I agree with you, and he did a really good job. You know, as smart as he is and successful, he did such a good job of appealing to just regular people. And I see that in you as well. Like you, I feel like you can hang with anybody. You're, you know, you have your shit together. You're really smart, but you also, even in your commercial, where you're like, you're walking down the streets of Patterson, that I guess that maybe it wasn't like the best part of the neighborhood, and you were like,
that's my neighborhood. Like, I actually live
like, I'm from the worst part. No.
Yeah, like that's the 4th ward that I was walking in. Like, I'm actually from that area. You know, the street that I live in is a little bit cleaner, but then around the corner it's you know what I mean? So yeah, that's where I live. That's not like a joke, that's not a gimmick. I mean, even look at my apartment. Like, you can see the roof. Like, I don't live in a very fancy place. Okay, like, I legitimately live under the policies that Bill Pascrell and the Democrat establishment have put on Patterson for decades, you know. So I'm not out here capping. Like, this is really what's happening here. And that area where that building that I was sitting in front of, that's about eight or 9 blocks away from my house. Like, that's not that far.
I'm going to play a little bit of your commercial because it really spoke to me. I was like, I don't know. I was like, I got chills. I was like, this was so good because it kind of, I guess it reminded me a little bit of like, what was her name? Kimberly Clark. Kimberly Klasick. Yeah. Same kind of thing where you were like, you're like walking through the neighborhood and it's just so real. So I'm just going to play like a little bit of this for you guys who haven't seen it because I was pretty moved by it and it's so genuine.
My name is Billy Prempeh and I've lived in Patterson, New Jersey my entire life. I'm a first-generation American, and I'm a child of legal immigrants. So hear me when I say this. America is a great nation, and Americans are incredible
so this
people.
Stoop that you're sitting on,
otherwise, it still looks like that.
This is very close to where you actually are from. Yeah.
Yes. I stand for our national anthem.
Did you do anything to this set? You probably just showed up and were like,
that's exactly how it still looks like. All this looks like this. It still looks like this. American privilege, because being an American is hands down the greatest privilege on the face of the earth.
Yes.
And I'm so proud of our rich American history. So proud, in fact, that when I was 18, I enlisted into the United States Air Force and served my country during wartime. Unfortunately, when I returned home, I returned to find my city of Patterson, New Jersey, literally became a war zone. How could this have happened? Politicians have allowed our community to be destroyed by drugs, violence, and bad education. Our permanent elected class, they don't care about us. I will not sit back and allow our community to be destroyed any longer. And if you love this place as much as I do, you're not going to sit back and allow it to happen either. So for that reason, I'm throwing my hat in the ring. I'm running for Congress to fix this.
What time of day were you taping this?
I'm running to represent the New Jersey 9th Congressional District. About 11, 12. I believe freedom is worth defending. And I firmly believe.
Did you get a lot of like funny looks when you were shooting?
No, actually, every time we messed up the set, people would laugh. Do it again. I mean, people resonate with the message. We live here, you know. So 9 years. It wasn't a negative response. So I got one question.
Yeah, I bet you probably had like a crowd at some point.
Has Bill Pascrell made like better? Not at this part. The part where we got to Rosa Parks Boulevard. Yes.
I'll show you.
Yeah, you're mentioning some very real stats here. 1 in 119 people in your district are victims of violent crime, and you said that number has even gone up.
Yes, it's higher now, which is unfortunate.
85% of American cities are safer than here.
Yeah, that's you have that pinned to your Twitter, so if people want to watch the rest of it, it's a really good little promo.
Unfortunately, it's a nice promo, but the sad thing is like, wow, that sounds really cool. Like, I mean, that sounds really bad. That's nuts. But it's like, you know, living here, it's pretty annoying. It's like every single day you wake up and on the Newsbreak application, I don't know if you're familiar with Newsbreak, but it's a little app that tells you about local news. There's not a single day where I wake up and someone hasn't been shot, someone hasn't been robbed, or both, or, you know, it's crazy. Someone's kidnapped, someone's raped. There's always crazy nonsense happening in the city, and it sucks because I believe that a lot of the crime and violence is allowed to happen in the city. And as you saw in that commercial, there's some areas where there's construction happening. This is my opinion. Our police department, they're super understaffed right now. They're pushing the rhetoric, Black Lives Matter. They painted it in front of the police department. They're not getting the funding that they need to actually get their job done. And most cops just don't want to be cops anymore. And it's not because they're bad people, but it's like, how could you be a police officer where you're 150 plus officers understaffed? You're not getting the funding necessary. You know, it's hard to build community cohesion because they're pushing this rhetoric of anti-cop, anti-police. And then on top of that, when police are supposed to be patrolling the streets, they can't. There's supposed to be about 20 plus patrol vehicles. And the last time I checked, I believe there's only 8 on the road at any given time. So it's kind of difficult to manage all of these problems, especially when you don't have the manpower, you don't have the equipment or the resources, and even the backing and support of the local politicians and constituents to resolve these kinds of problems. Bill Pascrell, he claims to say that Black Lives Matter, and he still has that video on his page, like, you should vote for me because I believe that Black Lives Matter, yet Black lives are being lost at an exponential rate here in Patterson, and he's doing absolutely nothing about it. The problem is not white people or random people driving up and down the block with cone hoods on their head, you know, like the KKK. That's not the case. You know, it's gang violence, you know, and there seems to be no end in sight. And the thing that's sad about it is they use this as an opportunity to promote and market themselves. But like, I actually live under this stuff. Bill Pascrell isn't in Patterson. He doesn't hang here. You know, even the mayor of our city, he's bragging about how nice the city's becoming and how he's going to make it like Hoboken of New Jersey. For the people that don't know, Hoboken used to be an inner city, essentially. And it became this super ritzy, yuppie, hipster kind of town where it's super expensive and no one can even afford to live there. They're building all kinds of developments in Patterson, developments that the people in Patterson living here currently can't even afford. So they're allowing the violence to increase. It decreases the property value. Then outsiders come in, they buy up our homes, they destroy our homes, they rebuild these super ritzy apartments that no one can afford in the middle of the 4th Ward. And it's mainly happening, especially to a lot of the Black people. The 4th Ward is predominantly African American, and we're being pushed out of our community. We can't even afford to live here anymore. But you'll see these yuppies walking around in our city like, oh, yeah, this is such a hipster, trendy place. We could live here, but we're being pushed out. And the mayor is doing absolutely nothing about it. So I don't find this to be a conspiracy that these outsiders are able to come in and buy up property for pennies on the dollar, yet there's no programs to actually help Pattersonians become homeowners in this city. Now, to give you a little bit of perspective, Patterson is just one of the many cities that are in the 9th district. The reason why I bring up Patterson quite a bit, though, is because Patterson alone makes up 35% of the vote in the 9th district. There's another city, Passaic, which is similar to Patterson, but it's much safer, much cleaner, and much more well kept. Still has its crime, but nowhere near as bad as Patterson. The mayor there is actually doing a pretty good job. I've got no issue with him. He's a Democrat as well, but he's actually doing a pretty good job. In comparison to a place like Patterson, we're being sold out. We're being sold out to the highest bidder. And the GOP establishment that we have here, they're very, very weak. The Passaic County chairman himself, he, not too long ago, about two and a half weeks ago, at an event in Clifton, he mentioned in a room full of about 170 to about 200 Republicans that Bill Pascrell is his friend and how Bill Pascrell and him are related. Yeah. And then he mentioned in front of while I'm sitting in the audience, and he says, you know, we're going to win in all these cities, all the suburbs, essentially. Yeah, but we're going to concede Patterson and Passaic to the Democrats. Gee, I wonder why you would do that. because Patterson and Passaic makes up 50% of the vote in the 9th district. You win those two cities and you win the whole district. So that's how the Democrats have kept control in the 9th district for over 20 something years. This is how Bill Pascrell has done the game. And when you have a weak GOP that deliberately chooses to lose, especially to someone that you claim is not even claim, it's a fact at this point, someone that is your relative, someone that helps you get jobs for your friends and your family and your cohorts, but nothing for the people themselves, in my opinion, it's a big slap in the face. So it's not that I'm at war with the Passaic County GOP, but I'm calling them out for their hypocrisy. And I call them out quite a bit. There's been several types of retaliation of people trying to smear my name and destroy my character. But at the end of the day, I'm not going to sit back and allow this to happen. If we're going to talk about red waves, we're going to talk about tidal waves. You're never, ever, ever going to have a tidal wave in New Jersey ever until you go into the inner cities. That is a fact. Whether it's Patterson, Passaic, Irvington, Newark, Camden, Trenton, these are all massive inner cities, huge inner cities where the Democrats have made a stronghold. And if we're not in there, they're going to continue to win. Oh, but it's voter fraud. Of course, because you're not in there to even call it out. So we have to go in there. So the solution from the chairman of Passaic is, why don't you do it? Why don't you get the poll judges in there? Why don't you get people involved in Patterson? Then we'll invest. So then why are you the chairman?
Wow.
Why are you the chairman of this party? Because you're clearly demonstrating to everybody in the district that you don't care about the people. He's a pocketician. He cares about himself. He cares about his pockets, and he cares about his relative staying in power so that he maintains his control. And I'm sick and tired of that. So they can send whoever they want after me. But at the end of the day, I'm not backing down because people in my community are dying every single day because of this kind of weakness. The Democrats aren't going to change. They've already got a control group. So it's up to me. It's up to my generation. These older people in the previous generation, they don't care about what's going on. They don't have to deal with the problems that I deal with or the people our community deal with. So I'm sticking my neck out where no one else will.
You have amazing energy. I can tell anyone listening to this knows that you're fired up. It's almost like you have to get upset and angry to be like, fuck it. I have to get involved. Like if I don't do this, it's almost like you feel kind of called by like God or like, whoever you believe in. It's like you're kind of called to do this. And it really seems like the people in power are just doing the least and just self-serving. And the more folks I talk to, like Tina Forte, who is running against AOC, I've talked to Larry Sharp, who ran against Cuomo in 2018. To me, just as an outsider, it seems, like running for any office is this like, bougie kind of elitist kind of Ivy League club, and how does a regular person, was that kind of at all? And you don't seem like someone who's intimidated by anything. Like you have your shit together. Was there any part of the process of running for office that was like, oh, you feel like it's set up in a way to kind of exclude the average person? Or was there anything that you learned or had to kind of get over to, It
is to some degree. So look, me, like one of my good friends, Jasmine, she tells me all the time, like, Bill, you're like a bull in the china shop. Like you just don't give a damn. You're going to run over anything. But this isn't my first rodeo. During my first run, I did kind of feel like the odds were stacked against me. But at the same time, the GOP makes you feel that way. Like, oh, you can never beat Pascrell. Oh, he's super entrenched. He's a multimillionaire. Like, why are you wasting time in his race? Why don't you be a councilman so that you could be under the thumb of the mayor and then under the thumb of Bill Pascrell? So you have no power, essentially. They would try and push these kinds of ideas on me. Like, oh, Bill, in order for you to win, you got to have the line. I'm not certain if New York has a line system, but for the people that that don't know what a line is basically the county parties choose who they put on the ballot. Essentially, you have to demonstrate your ability to be a worthy candidate, and then they offer you the line and say, hey, here's the slogan that you use, and you'll be the name that's on the ballot. I had a ballot.
Is it for like working parties? It's like, how there's the different like you're running under the different parties. Is that the line?
Yes. So I actually have a ballot right here, so I could show you. Actually, this one in Passaic County is not like that. But basically, to give you an example, is like if you were to.
Oh wait, let me put you in solo layout.
So I can kind of give you a bit of an idea.
Yeah. All right, go for it.
It doesn't necessarily say on this ballot, but if you looked in other districts, when your name was on the ballot in Passaic County, they don't necessarily do it, but here for Donald Trump, typically it wouldn't say Republican. It would say the Passaic County Regular Republican Organization or the Bergen County Republican Organization, because they're the ones who endorse you to be put on the ballot. There's other Republicans that are on there. This is only during the primary election, though, because you're running against other Republicans. So basically, it's their way of saying, we, the Republicans, are going with this guy. Everyone else is irrelevant. You know, choose the people that we do. People typically vote straight down the line, which is a system that I cannot stand. And New Jersey is, I believe, one of two or three states that still use this system. Everywhere else is an open primary. It's every man goes, you know, wild, wild west, like it should be. You know, may the best man win. But you have an advantage by having the party do this. And the problem that I hate about this so much is that the party uses the line as an opportunity to control the candidates. If you don't do this, if you keep talking to that person or you keep pushing this promotion, we'll make sure you won't get the line. Like, for example, the Clifton Republican chairman just recently, when I put a video out, basically, you know, chastising the Passaic County chairman at his event, you know, I grabbed the microphone and told him, like, Bill Pascrell is your friend. He is your relative. We're not going to concede. You can do that, but we're not, you know, and I had to call that out. I felt like he was trying to slide me. You know, the Clifton chairman's like, oh, you need to delete that video because if you do, you know, I'm on the executive board and we'll make sure that you don't get on the line and you won't be on the ballot. And all this bullshit, you know, excuse my language, but it's like they'll use this kind of stuff to kind of put you under their thumb. But at the end of the day, what I've learned and I realize is, one, I've got a huge reach, right? And that's not just me boosting my egos. Like, I've got a huge reach. A lot of people resonate with my message. A lot of people are pissed off and sick and tired of what they're saying. So I'm like, listen, at the end of the day, if you're not gonna give me the line, which I'm pretty sure they're gonna, in fact, I'm almost positive at this point, they're trying to run up some sheep to be the sheep to the slaughter to try and primary me. And they're gonna give that person the line. But at the end of the day, if they do that, everybody's watching them and everybody sees that they're running for they're literally trying to set up the Democrats to win. Who else has done what I've done in the 9th District? Who else is willing to go into the hoods of Patterson and do what I do? None of them, because they would be doing it right now if that was the case. So they'll try and put somebody else to try and run against me, to try and steal votes away from me, essentially. But at the end of the day, it shows that not only is the party weak, but they don't want to win. And most importantly, is I believe even if they were to do something like that, I will still beat the line. That could be me just with wishful thinking. But at the end of the day, there's enough people that know me in this district and have seen what I've done in this district that they'll be able to see right through their own nonsense. Say the party really doesn't want to win. Okay. So, and they know that, and they know that I'm not afraid to go out there and speak about it. So it's like, if they want to do that and try and run it that way, then that's on them. If they want to work together and actually win this district and unseat Bill Pascrell, then they're not going to play those kinds of games, because they know I'm not playing those games.
Yeah, I love it. And here is a comment from Dr. Bluebird. I lived in Patterson till I was 34. I just couldn't anymore with the corruption, drugs, and police. Sadly, I left this city I actually loved. So it's good.
That's a sad story that I hear way too often. There's a lot of people. It's very surprising. Like, when I started speaking out in this race, there's a lot of people all across the country that have their roots in Patterson. And the thing that's funny about it is Patterson was one of the original cities that was very critical to the Revolutionary War. Patterson was known as the Silk City because they created textiles and cloths, and they clothed most of America for decades, hundreds of decades, you know, and it was a very, very influential city. A lot of very famous people had their roots in the city. There's a lot of history here. The Great Falls National Park was pivotal to powering most of the East Coast and providing lots of resources for the people in Patterson. In fact, Alexander Hamilton has given numerous speeches in the city. He stayed in Patterson, and there's a lot of history here. So to see Patterson in the state that it's in right now, not only is it sad and disappointing, but it's almost a disrespect. It's a slap in the face of our own history, because this is a city that should be preserved and protected at all costs. But instead, it has a horrible reputation for reasons that it shouldn't. You know, even people refer to Patterson as P-Town, like this is the hood. No. If we're going to change it to P-Town, I would call it something like Prosperity Town, Potential Town, because that's exactly what this place has.
Prempeh Town, yeah.
Well, I'm not an egomaniac like Bill Pascrell, so I wouldn't call it Prempeh Town.
He would call it Pascrell Town if he could.
He probably would. You know, in fact, he requested a couple $1 million for a fire department in Patterson. Beautiful fire department. And yes, it was much needed, but the egomaniac decided to name it the Bill Pascrell Firehouse.
Oh,
so
God.
he'll help the fire department, great, but you'll neglect the police department and you'll side with the super far left radicals that want to defund the police because that's what he believes is going to get him votes. But the average person isn't coming out and voting. There's a lot more unaffiliated voters than there are Republicans. In fact, they almost rival the amount of Democrats that are here. But there's so many people disenfranchised that they don't even go out and vote. So the Republicans will tell you, well, the unaffiliated typically vote Democrat. No, they don't. They don't vote at all. If they wanted to be Democrats, they'd be registered Democrats. But why aren't they Republicans? There's 79,000 Republicans right now versus the 200,000 Democrats and 179,000 unaffiliated voters. It's because the Republicans aren't doing any work. They're not going into the areas where they need to go into. So I don't know anything about the Republican or conservative policies. I know everything about the Democrats. I've seen them the entire time. I want no parts of them. So I'm just not going to vote. But then they'll meet a guy like me that shows up at their front door. Oh, you're a Republican? Why are you a Republican? I at least have their ear. They're at least intrigued.
You make people excited. You're a real person. Yeah. Yes,
I'm a regular guy. I'm like, listen, I live in the same neighborhood as you. Why would you want to be a Republican? You know, those are the racists, XYZ. Racists. Bro, we've lived under. I'm like, it was like, you believe there's systemic racism? Yeah. You believe that there's nonsense in politics? Yeah. You believe all these things, right? Yeah. Guess who's been in power for the past 50, almost 60 years? The Democrats. It wasn't Republicans. So the reason why I'm a Republican is because they don't represent our values. What we've lived under, this is their value system. This is what they want. They want to tell people that look like me, you're too poor, go and get an abortion and kill your child, rather than providing resources to help these single mothers. Our education system is the lowest that I believe it's probably the lowest than the rest of the country right now. We have a proficiency rate of 37% of children that are graduating high school are proficient in math and reading. Yet this is what we're satisfied with. We're paying millions and millions and millions of dollars into our board of education with beyond subpar education. Why are we voting for these kinds of things? There's no opportunities. There's lots of opportunities to sell drugs and commit crime because there's the lack of opportunities. Why are we not partnering with the large businesses and bringing them back to these factories? We have so many derelict and vacant factories inside the city of Patterson. Why are we not giving a tax incentive to business owners to take control of those buildings and hire people within the district? Get more high-paying jobs, give more opportunity to the people. Why are we not partnering entrepreneurship and businesses that are in the trades, that are in finance, that are in the health fields? Why are we not bringing some of those experts into our schools, give those business a tax incentive to teach our children how to do what they do, so that by the time they graduate high school, they're an apprentice in a specific field? You want to go to college, fine. But if all else fails, you have a skill. Why are we not doing this? If we have something like that, we'll create a pipeline. We'll literally create a superhighway from school to high-paying career. We've already got the jobs. We've already got the education. Why are we not doing these things? Why are we not getting funding from the federal government or even from the state government to actually fund our police and give them the resources necessary? Why are we bringing so many outsiders into our city and being pushed out, and we're pricing ourselves out of the market? We're not even creating any home ownership. We're creating a renters society where we're constantly dependent on landlords. Why are only a select few of people able to purchase the city while we can't? These are all questions that I ask people, and they say, you know what? This guy's actually right. It's the Democrats that are doing this. The Republicans aren't doing this kind of stuff. All right. I'm coming with solutions. They're coming with guilt tripping, victimization, and things to make you feel like you're inferior so that you can't. Oh, there's no way to make it out of the situation. It's all bad. Wow. But it's the white people. It's the Republicans. They're the reasons why we can't get out. And that's not true. You can't tell that kind of lie to a 6'2" black guy with dreadlocks from the 4th Ward. OK, I live under these policies as well, too. The Democrats are the ones that are doing this.
Yeah. All the questions you're asking, everything you're saying, it's like you are someone who cares about what's going on locally, and you have ideas and you have, real solutions. And is that your biggest hurdle when you talk to people? Just like just basically like cracking open the lies and the sort of the idea of that Democrats are that the Democratic Party is helping.
It's actually not because it's actually not because these are all facts. At the end of the day, it's like, oh, it's the racist white people. Democrats this is a fact here. Democrats have been controlling this area for almost 5 decades, right?
It doesn't matter who's president,
Right. It's like you live under these policies. Okay. And if we want to get even more technical, for the past 26 years, has the district gotten better or worse? It's gotten worse. Well, here's one thing you have in common. You have the same congressperson. And this person was also mayor of this city before we left this area. So what are you saying right now? It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy when you start asking those kinds of questions, because it's like, if you don't like the way things are, and there's a 98%, almost 99% chance that they don't like the way things are, there's no way they can blame it on Republicans. There's no way. You live here. You see what I see. I've lived here my entire life, so you know these things. But it's become muscle memory to just keep going Democrat, because they'll get on camera and they'll virtue signal. We need to do this for black people. We're doing this for the LGBT. We're doing this. They divide people into groups to make them feel like they care. When at the end of the day, it's like, I don't care if you're blue. Are you an American? You're an American? Great. I'm fighting for you. That's all I care about at the end of the day. We're all the same people, but they would break people into small groups, create little tiny armies, and push them out to push their agenda. And when they no longer need them, they do whatever it is that they want. But election time comes around. Remember, I rallied you guys that one time and behind the tree in Central whatever park, and we came out. I said some stuff. Remember I gave you that turkey on Thanksgiving. Remember I did those stupid things, and then people say, yeah, he cares about us, and they don't. They don't care about you at all.
They distract you. They virtue signal to certain groups to make you feel like you're getting attention. And then you live long enough, you're like, wait, doesn't this happen every 4 years? And no real changes have been made, like in one's whole adult life. Have you noticed people's opinions of BLM have changed since last summer?
Yes, actually I have. What I've noticed is, for example, in Patterson and Passaic, I've noticed that it's a very small minority of people that actually think Black Lives Matter has done something significant. Like, for example, there's a group, I spoke with one of the, I don't know if he's a founder, but I would say one of the leaders in Black Lives Matter, Patterson. They like to differentiate themselves from Black Lives Matter. Like, oh, we're not Black Lives Matter, we're Black Lives Matter Patterson. And I see them do some pretty good things. They're giving out food to the people. They're doing clothing drives. These things are great. The problem that I have is you guys are actually doing something for the community. Black Lives Matter as a whole is a scam.
Incorporated, scam.
I'm like, they have Black Lives Matter rallies in Japan. Hundreds of people marching in Japan. Did you see those videos?
No.
Yes. This was like during the summer of love, as they called it, where when all this stuff was happening, and they're causing like $1.5 billion in damage, burning up the environment. Most of it Black-owned businesses and Black-owned areas. They're burning these places down. You got people in Japan marching with Black Lives Matter shirts. The only Black people in Japan are a handful of tourists and American troops, right, who are not oppressed in Japan by any means. Yet you've got these global rallies happening. Yeah, Black people are oppressed. We're hanging Black Lives Matter flags outside of embassies. Like, yeah, Black people are oppressed. Okay, what is the solution? What are you going to do? The only see, there you go.
Yeah,
there you go.
Why the Black Lives Matter movement fell flat in Japan.
See the thing? I'm like, yes, you can't make this stuff up.
I can't forget the look in the eyes of people seeing our march. They were ignoring us, not interested at all.
I mean, if you're Japanese and you walk up to another Japanese guy, I'm like, yo, bro, there's like 0.00001 Black people here. What are you talking about?
The issue is generally viewed as a foreign problem, not relevant in a place where many buy into what social scientists have called the homogeny myth, or the belief that there isn't much diversity to begin with in Japan. Yeah.
See, so they raised billions of dollars on this. Then Patrisse Cullors, she states that she's a trained Marxist, so I'm 100% against Marxism, right? People are now coming to terms with the fact that Black Lives Matter on their own website, which they did take down, said that they're for dismantling the what was the word for it? The dismantling the Western view of the nuclear family was some really wording.
Yeah, they remember that, right? It was like against the family. Yeah.
So you're against the two-parent household. You talk about how you're for rights for gay Black men, for gay trans people, Black women, but there was no mention of anything for Black men, the number one demographic that is being killed in the United States. There's no mention of that, right? Patrisse Cullors raises millions of dollars, buys millions of homes, and then when she gets caught, oh, I'm stepping down, but I did so much for the movement. I did all these things. You didn't do a damn thing. You burned down the country. You divided the country. You made Black people feel like they're victims, and they don't mean anything in this country. They mean a lot, but there's a lot of money to be made in race baiting. Al Sharpton has done it for decades. And there's some people that, oh, no, Bill, you're an Uncle Tom. You don't understand. You don't stand for Black people, blah, 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 blah. All the things that I just mentioned to you today help Black people. All right. Supporting abortion that kills more African Americans than African Americans are born is something that I believe every African American should be for. You should be pro-life as an African American. A lot of people don't even understand the origins of Planned Parenthood.
Yeah.
I talk about this quite a bit. Margaret Sanger was a devout racist and a eugenicist. You can go to the Planned Parenthood website and you go to the About Us section. You'll find it there. You'll find it. People don't believe
they put more locations like in black neighborhoods. They put more locations.
You don't find them in the suburbs.
Yeah.
You know, she was a member of she was from New York. She was a member of the New Jersey Women's KKK Auxiliary, right? She would go on the Planned Parenthood website. You'll see what go to the Planned Parenthood website. You'll see what I'm talking about. She would go to these or just type Planned Parenthood, Margaret Sanger, About Us on Google. You'll find it. She would go to these black churches and convince the African Americans that if you're in poverty, the most noble thing you could do is kill your child. She's on record as saying that the blacks, Jews, and Hispanics are weeds that need to be permanently eradicated from the face of the earth. Planned Parenthood handed out the Margaret Sanger Award for years until 2020, when people became more aware of what she was actually doing to the African American community. If you think that Planned Parenthood didn't know about Margaret Sanger and suddenly they know about this now, you're out of your mind. The entire organization is designed to exterminate minorities. That is a fact. And if you support the whole pro-choice agenda, then you're supporting the exterminating of African Americans, because that's what's happening. All right. The founder wanted this. Planned Parenthood supported us. Oh, here we go.
More than 100 years ago, when Margaret Sanger and her sister opened a clinic in Brooklyn to provide family planning information, birth control was illegal. Only 10 days after her clinic, the first Planned Parenthood opened, Sanger was arrested and thrown in jail. And they're, of course, painting it like she's this hero.
Yeah.
And people don't realize, and you talked about this, that the welfare state correlates directly with single motherhood.
See, Planned Parenthood has never been for African Americans. I tell people go and look at the history of this organization and what they're all about. They didn't want African Americans to be born. They don't want Hispanics on this country. You see these in the inner cities where there's the most impoverished people. I have a solution to these kinds of things. My thing is, if we're going to spend millions and millions of dollars on an organization like Planned Parenthood to go out and kill our kids, why don't we spend millions and millions of dollars on helping single mothers that are caught in a situation where they cannot financially provide for the children? Why don't we create a program similar to Planned Parenthood, where we'll provide resources, we'll provide diapers, formula, whatever it is that's needed for in the first 2 years of that mother's life to help her get on her feet, education programs to help these women get the education that they need if they don't have it. Why don't we do this? It's so simple to say, just go and kill your child. And the main people that's affecting is us. We're not even given the opportunity to thrive, because African Americans make up 13.4% of the American population. Since Planned Parenthood has been here, we've exterminated millions of babies. If we didn't do this, those children that would have been alive and the children that they would have made, the United States would have most likely made up. The African American community would have most likely made up about 30% of black people in the United States right now. We don't want the word to go out that we want to exterminate the Negro population. There you go. That is the hero of Planned Parenthood. That is a hero. That is
that's our Planned Parenthood hero, founder.
Yes. And media works overtime to try and defend this woman and say, oh, well, that's not true. She was actually quoted out of context. And it's a fact. She was a part of the KKK. It is a fact, and these are the type of things that Black Lives Matter stands for. And they're pushing basically the demise of the African American family,
And they frame it in such a way that, oh, this is for you. This is your freedom. This is. And I remember, I was very pro-choice, throughout college in my 20s. I fell for it too. You're just oh yeah, well, I don't want to speed bump my life by having a kid.
Exactly.
And they frame it in a way that you fall for it as a young person, because you think, oh, my freedom is going to be torched if I, get pregnant. And really, it should be.
In my opinion, if someone's going to claim to be pro-black, what you need to be doing is making more black people, because there's not enough of us. If you're going to claim to be, you're all for African American advancement, then we're not burning down our communities. We're going to hold the people accountable that are destroying our communities. That is pro-black to me. Burning the city down does nothing. All right. Starting riots does nothing. Complaining, no justice, no peace does nothing. Forward action gets things done. the statistic that blows my mind so much is that during the height of Jim Crow, during the height of racism, black families were booming. They were doing fantastic. They had 2 parents in the household. They had income that rivaled the whites. If not, there were many black people that were making way more than white people. You know, they had opportunities that many don't even have today. And the key factor in all this was the 2-parent household. Having 2 parents in a household is almost a guarantee that the child is going to have a much more stable life growing up. And then you hear the feminists say, like, well, what if it's an abusive relationship? Then they shouldn't be together. And I'm like, okay.
It's so rare. Like it's
like when they say, well, what about rape and incest? You want people to carry to those? I was like, no, exactly. I don't. Don't put words in my mouth. But you're using that small statistic and blowing it into something that's massive, and you're using that as an opportunity to say, nope. The feminist movement is no friend of the African American family because they're about destroying the family. Planned Parenthood is not a fan either.
Yeah, the feminist movement is not a fan of women or the black community. It's a trick. I want to know, Billy, how do you think, just, Biden's been in office less than a year. How do you think so far the Biden administration, well, not him, because he's just sitting there trying to stay awake, but how do you think so far the Biden administration has failed Black America? Or what do you see?
Well, first off, the King Don Juan race baiter, Jesse Jackson came out and said, "Oh, I think we got played by the Biden administration." You think? You vote Democrat just because they're Democrat, you get nothing. Donald Trump at least was proposing the Platinum Plan, which would have brought investment into the inner cities. We had the lowest black unemployment in over 50 years under President Trump. The most racist man in the United States was the one who did this kind of stuff. They try to push it forward. Joe Biden offered us nothing. In fact, I don't know if you saw that video where he had a meeting with several black leaders, and he was saying that that the problems that we have in the United States are because, or he kind of alluded to that the problems were because of black people and all this nonsense. And he's saying, we're going to be the minority at some point. The Hispanic community is growing. You guys are going to have to deal with them. Almost as if that what
a weird thing to say. I do remember that, like trying to pin the groups against each other or something, or like, they're exactly catching up. It's like, ugh.
This is the guy who stood for segregation, for many, many years, who said that schools are going to become racial jungles if we try and stop the segregation. The guy was totally against African Americans. So he's done nothing for black people. He's failed on every single one of his policies. Unemployment is back up where it used to be. If not, I think it's a little bit worse. There's no opportunities that he's offered. Instead, he's caused runaway inflation. Taxes are higher than they've ever been. And now this new stimulus plan that he put through, the IRS can now see what's going on inside your bank account. If you have more than $600 in your bank account, now the IRS is able to see how much money you got, so they can tax you into oblivion to make up for this multi-trillion-dollar infrastructure bill that they're putting in place. This is not about saving America. This is not about people. This is not about building back better. This is about straight up communism. We don't live in a communist country. The government now wants to look inside your bank account and take every single dime. If you have more than $600, they want to be able to tax you on that. And there's no way you can do this. There's no way that you can protect your assets at this point. Oh, yes, you can, Bill. You're being a fearmonger. Look at what he's done. He's doing such a great job on foreign policy, right? He pulled out of Afghanistan in the most ridiculous way possible. Yeah, but Donald Trump was going to pull out. Correct. With the structured plan. I was in the military. You don't pull the troops out first. The troops are the absolute last to come out. You get the civilians out. You get the contractors out, you get the weapons and equipment out, then you get the military out and you maintain surveillance on that nation. That's what needs to be done. That's not what happened. He pulled out the troops. He left Americans hostage, and there's still lots of Americans that are still out there in Afghanistan, where people like Glenn Beck, a radio host, had to go and charter a plane to go and get some of these Americans out of there. We abandoned them. An explosion happened that killed 13 American service members, over 200 plus Afghani civilians. And then days later, we're going to go and attack. He does a drone strike and kills a family of 10. He didn't even get the target. The guy is an absolute catastrophic nightmare. Anyone that can look you straight in the face and say that Joe Biden is doing a good job is either lying to you or has no idea what they're talking about. And they're probably just watching a couple of talking points here and there. And even CNN is calling out the nonsense of the Biden administration. There's a problem when CNN is even starting to turn on the person that they protected this entire time. I mean, the guy was practically a carcass walking around with that could walk and talk, and he never came out, never wanted to show his face, didn't debate at all, except for those 2 times that was televised, and he was probably hyped up on Adderall for all we know to even do those kind of debates. He's failed. He's failed in every single level, and it's only been 6 months, right? Here in the East Coast, you're in the East Coast, right?
Yeah.
How bad has the cost of living gone up? You cut down the Keystone XL pipeline, which would have provided lots of jobs. It would have reduced the price of energy, because when the price of energy goes up, the cost of everything goes up because it requires energy to transport those things. It's simple stuff. The Capitol pipeline gets hacked, and then the cost of fuel goes up even higher on the East Coast. It is almost impossible to live. I know so many people, which saddens me, that want to move out of places like New Jersey and move to places like Texas, Tennessee, and Florida. But now we're a couple patriotic Americans down. We can't run away from this kind of stuff. We have to stand and let our voices be heard right where we stand, because no matter where you go, it's only a matter of time before we get boxed in, and then America isn't what it used to be anymore. And the media is going to continue to lie and prop this lie up.
I agree. Yeah, I do feel like I'm someone who has to kind of stay and fight for New York, like, as best I can, because if, there is a timeline where I would have loved to move to like Texas or Florida right now, but I can't. And I agree with you in that, like, if we don't stand, if some of us don't stand and fight where we are, it's like they will eventually come to Florida, Texas, Tennessee, and it won't matter where you're at. Yeah, I was going to ask you how as a veteran, how disrespected you must feel. I mean, like, look at how veterans have been treated, current military folks who are like still serving now with all this pressure to get the job. I'm trying to be careful with my words because of all this YouTube crackdown stuff. There's pressure on them. How many of them, even with the what was it, the Navy SEALs, they were about ready to get rid of like hundreds of them because they didn't want to get the job. And then all these healthcare workers, just in New York alone, 100,000 of them. Hochul is saying she's going to replace them with National Guard, like they don't have something better to do. How does all of this feel? The mandates, I guess, namely being imposed on the military. Like how does that make you feel, like, as a veteran?
It hurts a lot, because I believe one of the most misunderstood groups in the United States are the American veterans. I remember growing up as a child and seeing some homeless veterans thinking, oh man, how'd that guy get like that? When you see some stuff and you put your life on the line for a country that you love, and then that same country turns their back on you, in fact, you become extremely disposable, and they use you to do things that no longer serve the will of the people or the United States Constitution. It's not difficult to see why someone like that would be in that position. And we turn our backs to them. And even our active duty troops are doing that to them right now, where many have dedicated years, decades of service to the United States. And because the United States is saying you have to take this now, unfortunately, when you're in the military, you sign on the dotted line. You no longer fall under the United States Constitution. You fall under the UCMJ. So I understand that argument. But at the same point, you're being forced to do something that is against your will. And this is one of those things where you say, hey, listen, if you don't want to do it, usually you just get discharged, you let go. These people are now about to be dishonorably discharged, where they're going to lose all their benefits, they're going to lose their rank, they're going to lose everything that they put on the line for their country, because the government is saying you have to put this in your body. Like we're talking about here with this new temporary governor we've got in New York. You're going to force out, and I want people to kind of just think of a precedent here, is like you're going to force out thousands of hospital workers, medical workers, I should say. You're going to force thousands of them out and replace them with the National Guard. Okay. So here's the first thing. And this is one of the things that I don't think anyone's thought of or brought up. What about the police that don't want to take these, that don't want to take these? And there's lots of them that don't want to take these vaccines. Are you going to replace them with the military as well? Because if the solution is just replace them with the military, now you've got the military policing our streets. Isn't that a violation of posse comitatus? Because that's exactly what we're doing now at this point. If we've got the military now in like dealing with the health situation, how far are we going to push this? Oh, Bill, that'll never happen. We got to stop that logic of it'll never happen and you're being a conspiracy theorist, you're thinking too much. We're at a point right now where the military is now about to handle the medical situations in our city. For this, I'm not going to say the word because I don't want to ban you on YouTube. For this situation, this global situation, they want everybody to take the job, right? And now they're taking jobs. How long? At what point? At what point do not just the people in New York, but the people in the United States say that this is ridiculous? This is getting completely out of hand. Because I don't mean to go into the Hitler thing, because people are like, oh, look, he's making the appeal to Hitler. Oh, of course he is. But listen, Hitler practically defunded the local police departments, created a federalized police force known as the Brown Shirts, and they enforced the will of Hitler from a federal level.
It's not dissimilar.
Right. It's not dissimilar at all. You know, the local police, you have the local, and then you have the SS taking control of the health system. It's like, okay, when you start to compartmentalize all that power to the top and there's no local autonomy, there is no freedom. Okay, it's what the person at the top says goes.
And nobody voted for these people.
Nobody asked for this kind of stuff. I didn't ask for this, but this is a direction that they're trying to push our country into. So we have to be very careful of these kinds of things. There's people that just want a virtue signal who just say, well, just take the job because, you know, it's better for everybody else. Well, didn't you take the job? Yeah, but you got to take it too. So if it works, then you shouldn't worry about me. After all, you're protected. Yes, but then if you don't take it, then we're all gonna die somehow.
Yeah,
it's nonsense at this point.
The logic does not really line up. A question from Matthew Hammond: what would you say to people that say, "How are you going to fix things from Washington D.C.? Should you not be running for mayor or city council?" I think you maybe touched on that earlier.
I did touch on that, and the reason why is because if I run for council, the mayor in our council, the mayor doesn't even listen to the existing council right now. He does not care. He's going to do whatever he wants. He calls himself the protege of Bill Pascrell. He believes that he's next in line. The council is also extremely corrupt because they're willing to do whatever they want. They're willing to do whatever it takes to be a rubber stamp to try and climb the political ladder. Anybody who tries to step out of line, they'll demonize them, try and destroy them, start investigations, and do all kinds of things like that. I run as mayor, and I'm in the exact same situation. I still have to deal with Bill Pascrell. You got to understand, this man has been in politics for over 40 years, not just as congressman, but who was also the mayor and an assemblyman as well too. He has some very, very deep tentacles, not just in the Democrat Party, but as well as the Republican Party. So if we're ever going to fix this city, we have to go for the head of the snake. I understand that logic because it sounds reasonable. This guy talks about Patterson quite a bit. You should just run for council, but then nothing gets accomplished. Right. In fact, they've got a better shot of destroying me and taking me down at a local level in council and mayor than they do from a federal level. At a federal level, let's just say I know there's corruption going on in this city. From the federal level, I can request the attorney general to look into to investigate certain departments in our city and certain areas inside of our district, areas that I know he has his hands deep inside of. Like, I believe that there's some corruption. I believe there's something going on. I'm requesting assistance to look into these incidents. You can't get something like that done when the congressman is sitting in that chair. But me being able to be in Congress, I have more access to actually help the city. Even though I'm not the mayor, I could bring resources. I can bring clarity and investigations and transparency to the city that otherwise would not be possible. So that's the reason why I decided to run for Congress instead of running for council or running for mayor.
Yeah, you want to hold them accountable. From Matthew again, I appreciate Billy doing this. There needs to be people standing up against the establishment in both parties.
And I agree.
Yeah. And a good question from George. When did the Dems, pro-slavery, KKK, Jim Crow, super predator, claim ownership of the black vote? The first generation of black statesmen were all Republican.
This is true, and not only that, but the first 27 African-American senators as well, not just the first congressman, but they also played a part in developing the Republican Party and ripe in Texas. So that's actually a good fun fact that many people don't know. But they'll say, yeah, but the party switched in the 1960s. Like, overnight, it switched, even though there were only two Democrat congresspeople that flipped Republican. But they don't own ownership. The problem is that the Republican Party does a horrible job of outreach, an extremely horrible job. In my district, I know it's because there's deals that have been made in place with the Democrats of the past and the Republicans of the past to deliberately stay out of places like Patterson. We'll keep this, you'll keep that. It became a pocketician situation and not a politician situation for the people. So because of that, you allow the Democrats to continue to maintain control, and you got a situation where it appears that they control the black vote, but they're only voting Democrat because what other option is there? That's the unfortunate bit. I intend to be that option.
Yeah. I'm excited for you, Billy. Where can people, because I know you got to run, where can people find you, follow you, support you? I know I am going to be throwing some coins your way.
I appreciate that.
Let me know where I can do that. And then also let people know, like, who are you looking for as you think about building your team? What could you use more of? Just where can people, hit you up?
So people, you can support the campaign by going to billyprempeh.com, just like the way my name is spelled on screen, BILLYPREMPEH.com. In the volunteer section, if you add yourself to our email list, you'll be able to find out all the things we're doing. As a volunteer team, we have several local events. So if you are in New Jersey or you're in the 9th district, there you go. You can just hit the volunteer button at the top. You can also make a donation there if you'd like. But if you are in the North Jersey area, you're in the 9th district, and you'd like to help volunteer, get on the email list. You'll find out a lot of the things that we're doing. We've got several events that we've got planned, and we need people to help us with making phone calls, putting signs out. If you've got some great real estate, you got some good property on the main road, and you'd like to request a sign next year, we could do that as well. If you want to help with canvassing, anything like that, please do. We've got a volunteer event that we're doing in Patterson on the 16th, the day after my birthday, by the way, where we're going to be outlining some of the things that we're going to be doing as a volunteer group. Now, if you'd like to donate, support the campaign, there's also a button up there. Donate whatever you can. I want you to understand that I am going up against a very big and very powerful machine that is very, very well established. And every penny counts, but more importantly, your effort counts, because the money means nothing without your effort.
I love it, Billy. I'm so excited that you exist, and you have a great heart. You have your shit together. We need more people like you just everywhere in this country. So I'm excited to see what happens for you. And did you mention where people can follow you?
Yeah, so you can follow me on, if you go on Facebook, you type Billy Prempeh, you can find me there. On Twitter, Billy Prempeh. But on Instagram, where I'm the most active, you'll find me there at Some Guy Named Bill.
Some guy named Bill.
Because I am just some guy. I'm just some guy who said I'm tired of it.
Great. So many of us are. I'm so glad you're here. Thank you, chat, for your comments and your super chats. Billy, thank you so much for coming on. I definitely
God bless you. Thank you.
We'll be watching you and keeping up with you, and we'll talk again soon. Thanks, guys.
Absolutely. Take care.
Bye.